Hi everyone, this is the E-mini Nasdaq. I'm using a 1000 tick chart and a 21 EMA. I've got my overnight high up here and my overnight low down here. These are our key levels for the day. And I started trading at 8 Central Time, which is this area right here. And so we have this uptrend going. And notice that we have this spike up, a break. Now, when an uptrend gets a break, which this uptrend right here, this is a little uptrend. It's a lot smaller than this one, but they still play out similarly. When this uptrend gets a break here, we can expect prices to attempt a new high. But it is important to note that we just formed the overnight high, and so you don't want to enter directly into that. And even though down here, if you would enter down here, you would have enough room to it, I would want to see two clear legs back, especially when coming off of the overnight high, because this is a major key level right here. And the market moves in pairs of twos, second entries form all over the place. And so when you form the overnight high, you want to see two clear legs. I don't, even though you have a push down here, and then it gets a little bit choppy and then makes a second leg down, I don't view that as a good second entry. I would want to see another leg down the size of that entire push right there. Because it's pretty clear that on a bigger picture, this is definitely one leg, of course. And you could just make a second leg down to the key entry point, which is what I'd like to see. Two clear pushes down, not basically one push down. So anyway, we push on up here. Now we make that new high to the tick there, and we find clear resistance right off of that previous swing. This overnight high level is clearly holding. So when this uptrend is attempting to play out, the bulls want the uptrend to make a new high after that break. They want price to make a new high after that uptrend break. But the bears want this overnight high level to hold because they're wanting to short off of it. And so the bears won out. It ends up going sideways here, chopping around a bit and pushing lower. No clear entry on the way lower because, one, you don't want to enter right into this trend line, but also it didn't form a clear entry. It was just kind of going choppy anyway. But what could happen is it makes a reversal pattern. So a push lower, two clear legs back, holding on the EMA. Because if we had gotten it ends up forming right here on a bigger picture. But what could happen is a push right below the EMA and also breaking out of this trend line, and then two clear legs back, holding on the EMA. Or if it's a little bit bigger picture, it would push past the EMA, but then it could push lower on the signal bar, closing back below. But this would be a great area for a nice reversal pattern. But it doesn't set up right there. It pushes on lower, and then it sets up much bigger picture. So we get this push up here, and so now we have uptrend, break, and then first attempt at a new high. Just like I said with this right here, when an uptrend gets a break, you can expect prices to attempt a new high. Now this is a much bigger uptrend, and so it's not always going to make a new high. And if you see two attempts at a new high, and then it starts to fail, you can look to get in on the failure. And so anyway, we have that first attempt here. It pushes on lower here. Now, as it pushes lower, if it had made a clear push down and then it actually makes a couple attempts back and starts holding below, you can look to make the new low from there and get some kind of failed second entry. What I mean by that is a failed second entry starting from here, so a smaller failed second entry while making the second leg down. But it doesn't do that. It continues making the bigger picture failed second entry. So it pushes on up here. Now at this point here, you already have two legs up. Even though it hasn't reached the measured move, you already have two legs up. So when it pushes below the EMA like that, it could just go into a reversal pattern. It could just form a failed second entry. And again, it could form a smaller failed second entry. You have the big picture failed second entry right here. And oftentimes what price will do is push down from that level and then offer a smaller setup, oftentimes in the form of a smaller failed second entry. But anyway, so as we push lower right here, we don't get an entry. Now you can look to just enter on this big failed second entry and get a big entry, but you can't enter right into this trend line right here. And so no entries here. We push on up. Now, on this second leg up, when I say second leg, obviously there's multiple legs here. What I mean is the second attempt at the measured move, because we have this leg up here, break, and then first attempt at a new high, and then second attempt at a new high. Now, obviously it made that new high, but it doesn't matter. It will often make two legs anyway, especially when that measured move has not been met. And so we push on lower here. Now, I was kind of wishing that this trend line was a little bit more thin, like that. Because then we could have gotten a more clear entry, just pushing out. But in this case here, it was a little bit wider. And, it pushes lower here, starts finding some resistance off that trend line, goes a little bit sideways and just takes off. There's no way to get short on that. Like, I certainly would not want to do this. I understand it's a big picture, failed second entry, uptrend break, 2 attempts at a new high, but this is, you're just really pushing it at that point. You're pushing your target way too much. I would have wanted to see a much more smaller entry. I wouldn't want to have my target so far away from the from the initial point of it moving down. You can extend it a little bit, but you can't just keep doing that forever. So anyway, we push on lower here. What I would have loved to see was a push lower and then 2 clear legs back, forming a smaller picture failed second entry. So if we could have just gotten something like this, push lower, a failed second entry stemming from right here, that would be the perfect trade to go along with this second leg down right after forming that bigger picture failed second entry. So anyway, that just doesn't happen. Pushes on lower here. Now notice that we have this measured move in play, this down measured move. We have the first leg down. After that 2-legged correction, we start that second leg down. Now price pushes on past that measured move, and then we immediately start pushing back to retest it. Now, sometimes what you'll see is price will push back, it'll push through the measured move, and then you'll get 2 legs back, retesting it, and it'll offer a short. But in this case here, and that's what I was wanting to happen, I was wanting to see 2 clear legs back, retesting that measured move level to offer a short. But that's not what happens. It ends up pushing on up and going way past that measured move level. And then from here, notice what it does. It makes a failed second entry. First entry long, second entry long, failure. So this is a big picture failed second entry. Okay, notice on this side of the count, you have this uptrend, break, and then first attempt higher, second attempt higher, and now you can look to enter on the failure. Now, it pushed through at first, but then immediately started holding on that level. Of course, it's pushing through a little bit, but overall, you can tell it's bouncing off of that previous measured move level. And you had that uptrend, that trend line working up, just like over here. But we did get this close out. Plenty of room to this measured move right here. Really great looking entry. So, when you meet a measured move, it'll oftentimes just bounce off and reverse. But if you push on through and price clearly attempts to reverse, and especially if it's holding off that level like that so clearly, then you can look to continue down. And so we push on lower here. Notice that right when that measured move is met, this little red down measured move is met, price starts pushing on up. Now we could reverse at this point. We could look for another short and see how this previous measured move holds, but it doesn't quite reach that. It just pushes up and then immediately pushes all the way back down, making this double bottom. Pushes up again. Now, this green trend line was like this, and so it broke on out, and it looks like it's getting pretty bullish there, breaking out. And so I wouldn't want to just take a short right after, because it did make a double bottom. It's not just the second entry; it is a double bottom, and oftentimes the double bottoms the count will reset, and then it'll make a 2-legged move from there. And so it was not worth entering short there. Now, we push on lower here. After that swing formed, I move the trend line to it. We push lower, get a couple legs down, and then we get a couple legs back up to that trend line. So we can see here we have first entry short and then second entry short. Sorry, I was talking kind of far away from the mic for a while. We have these 2 legs up here, and it's clearly a second entry, but it's not, it's not clear though. I say it's clearly a second entry. Yeah, you have 2 legs up there, but it's not a clean, clear setup. It's getting very choppy right there. A whole lot of sideways action, really just nothing to take. But even with that being said, when you push lower here, and you might want to enter on that because it's red and bearish, and it's right after that second entry, but you're right into those lows right there. So there's no way that you would want to enter short on that. It's just completely choppy and sideways. You're literally within this range right here, and you're entering right into those lows, and there's clearly holding right there. You have the swing there, pushed on through, held again right there, getting very choppy. Absolutely nothing to take right there. We push lower one last time before pushing on out with these 2 clear legs up. Now we get this leg up, break. We can expect price to attempt a new high, and we can look to enter long, making the new high, but we just need a setup for it. We just don't get it. We push up, we start finding resistance right at that previous swing, basically just making a double top, although it does make multiple swings here. And on this double top, it makes this little micro triple top before pushing on lower. Now, as much as I would have loved to be in this move, I was not. Even though you push out right there, even though you have a second entry, you still don't want to just go short right there. You don't know that it's going to push on down like that. At this point, even though you had those 2 legs down, price failed to reverse. From here, you had a downtrend break, a couple legs down, another measured move met right there. So price kept playing out, and then eventually it started looking like it's reversing right before it met that overnight low. And so you can expect a reversal in this area. Now, if price pushes lower and continues in the downtrend, then yeah, you can look for shorts. But I'm not looking to go short right here. We just reversed. The up measured move is still in play. It was very close to that overnight low before pushing off. It's not always going to reach it perfectly. But the point is, you don't just want to immediately enter short just because you got 2 legs up and then a red bar pushing out of this chop right here. Now, anyway, it started getting choppy, and we haven't met that measured move. What I would have liked to see is a couple legs back and possibly getting a long, but it just doesn't happen. We push on lower here, and if it had formed a reversal pattern from here, a failed second entry holding under the EMA, let me just draw one out really quick. If it had formed something like this, when I say holding under the EMA, I know it's going to have to push through the EMA, but closing back below when it's pushing down, then we could have gotten some kind of short. If it was clearly not wanting to reverse on higher, then we could have gotten something, but this is just not enough. It was just completely choppy there and then just pushed out, I mean, I haven't seen it in a while, but I used to get comments, people hounded me for not catching these huge moves, and it's like, it doesn't make any sense. It's like every time, I mean, I've seen situations like this many times where, it's going sideways like that and then you break out, but it doesn't do that every time. So just because, anyway, I'm kind of going off on this area for too long. Basically, just nothing to enter there. We push on lower here, go into this downtrend, and now we get this break. Now, we've broken out of the overnight low at this point, so we can expect price to attempt to fade. It's very common, when price breaks out of overnight levels or range levels, price attempts to fade back in. And so, if we can get a push above, one, we can actually look to get in on a failed second entry and go long because you can expect it to fade again, like I said. But if you get 2 attempts to fade and you retest it, then you can look to go short and continue with the breakout. Because if you get 2 attempts to fade and it's still not successfully fading, then price is just likely not fading. So if you push off and clearly get back below, then you can look to enter on the failure. But in this case here, it doesn't happen. Would have liked to see a couple clear legs back retesting, but it just doesn't happen. So we get a little bit choppy right here, starts going into this range, we break out, push back lower, goes into this very sharp downtrend again. Even though we're overshooting, which overshoots lead to breaks, but if an overshoot just continues pushing on out, then it's just forming a sharper trend. So in this case here, the overshoot continues, forming its own trend, and then we get this 2-legged break. Now, a failed second entry, pushing lower here would be a great entry, and that's what we get. Starting from here, it is a failed second entry. It's a little bit hard to see sometimes because this first leg is so big, but what you do have here is this high, first entry long, second entry long failure. Obviously, you could get a bigger picture one even after this pushes lower, but you have to take it one price action level at a time. You have this downtrend, 2 clear legs breaking out. You can expect price to attempt a new low. Now, when we push up here and then get this break, at this point we form that measured move. We push up, we test that measured move, but then we find resistance right there, so it's kind of competing between this measured move, which is holding, and this trend line, which is holding. But then, excuse me, my throat's kind of hurting. So we push up again, find resistance at that measured move again, but then we actually push below the trend line. So now the trend line's not an issue. And so we can just enter from there. I like that for more than 1-to-1 because, I mean, it's just such a clear, sharp move down. Like I said, overshoots will oftentimes lead to breaks, but if it just keeps on continuing down, then it's not really an overshoot. It's just kind of the trend is just becoming more sharp. It's just sharpening out, basically, going into a new, sharper trend. So anyway, we have this downtrend, couple legs back, expecting a new low. It's holding on that measured move. It looks good for, I have this one at, excuse me, I liked it for 1.5 R, so that's 1 to 1.5. 1 to 2 seemed a bit much because, I don't want to push it past that low. It did just have a sudden push up there. It was very bearish, and then out of nowhere, just sudden pushes up. So 1 to 2 did seem excessive on that, to be honest. But clearly you can go for more than 1 to 1 on that one. So anyway, we push on lower here and get this clear leg, break up, and then we make an almost measured leg right there. Now we push on up. It's not always going to be perfectly measured, but it's close enough that if we had pushed up here, we could make a failed second entry and look to go long. Even though it's very bearish at this point, if you get a clear reversal pattern, you can look to go long, but it just doesn't happen. So we push up a little bit, get a couple legs, nothing to enter on. Then here we get a couple legs back down. Now we get this green bar here, and if we had just closed above the EMA right there, then it's very likely that a better setup would have happened. But instead, it just closes below this trend line right here, and then it starts getting choppy on the next bars. They do break out of that trend line, but it's clearly not holding. It's clearly not able to get above the EMA. Excuse me, I'm getting all tongue-tied here. It's clearly not able to get above the EMA, and so it pushes off the EMA, retests that low, and then at that point it does have a bar closing above, but what I don't like about it is it already has these 2 legs up, and considering how bearish it was, like I said, if you get a clear reversal pattern, or a clear 2 legs back pushing above, and it's clearly looking like it's trying to reverse and go higher, then you can look to enter long. But you do have to be extra careful. Like, I'm not going to just take a higher low. You know what I mean? If we have, like I said, if we got a good long at these 2 legs back, holding above the EMA, pushing above, but, it has to be a really good long setup. It can't just be like a higher low, because it is very bearish at this point. So anyway, we push on up here, we retest it again, we push on up. I would just want to see a failed second entry at this point, and we form this higher low. Like I said earlier, I didn't want to take that. Push on up, reach this high, and we find a clear reaction to it. And I would have loved to see a failed second entry, but I'm sure that this happened while I was making the video. But we push lower here, get this lower high, closing above the EMA. You don't want to see that on a lower high, because when you push below the EMA and want it to hold below, the last thing you want to see is a green bar pushing above, and then the next red bar is still not even able to get back below. So that does not look good for a short at all. But yeah, anyway, that's going to do it for this video. We just pushed down, reached this low. We could, possibly make some kind of failed second entry higher. Just kind of continue playing this range here. But anyway, that's going to do it for this video. I hope it helped out in some way. And yep, thanks for watching. I'll see y'all next time.